To me, this is the perfect mac and cheese. The sauce is creamy but not runny. It's seasoned well but not salty. Using 3 cheeses gives it the perfect balance of nutty, creamy, tangy, and salty. And of course, the pasta is cooked al dente. Plus, it's easy to make. Let's talk cheese. I'm using 8 ounces of Monterey Jack. If you only use cheddar, the flavor of your mac and cheese will be one-dimensional. Monterey Jack is mild and creamy, but you could also use Muenster or Havarti. Both are good substitutes. Try to avoid pre-shredded cheese because it won't melt as well. To grate the cheese, you can use a grater, a box grater, a food processor, or a rotary cheese grater. With just a regular grater, it can take a while. Grate your cheese before boiling your pasta. Anytime you cook or bake, prepping is important. The second cheese I'm using is Gouda. Gouda is sweet and creamy and easy to find. Smoked Gouda will work, but some people might be put off by the smokiness. I'm cubing it instead of grating to show you that you do not need to grate your cheese. If you use cubes, the cheese will take longer to melt, so try to make the cubes small. The next cheese I'm using is sharp cheddar. Make sure you're using a cheddar that you know is sharp. Sharpness can vary by brand. I will use half of it for the sauce and half to grate on top before I put it under the broiler. Get your water boiling for your elbow pasta. I salt before it starts boiling so I don't forget about it. I used about 3 tablespoons of salt. Make sure your pot is big enough to hold a pound of pasta. Once the water is boiling, add your 16 ounces of elbow pasta. Stir occasionally while it cooks. Mine cooked to al dente in about 7 minutes. I'm using large elbows, which take slightly longer to cook. Remember, this mac and cheese will not bake in the oven, so don't overcook it. After about 6 minutes, taste your pasta. Once it's done to your liking, drain the pasta and pour it into a 12 by 9 inch tray. You can probably get away with using slightly smaller dimensions, but I always use this size. Drizzle over 1 tablespoon of oil to prevent the pasta from sticking. Stir and set aside. To make the sauce, add 3 tablespoons of butter to a pot along with 1 12-ounce can of evaporated milk and keep the heat on low. Add your spices. 1 teaspoon of dried minced onion, preferably, but 1 teaspoon of onion powder is fine. 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of cayenne. Adjust the amount of cayenne to your liking. 1 3/4 teaspoon of this Louisiana Cajun seasoning. I'm not adding any additional salt because this seasoning has a ton of sodium. Always check to see how much salt is in your Cajun seasoning. And don't forget, cheese has salt in it too. I also added a half teaspoon freshly ground black pepper. Stir everything together, then add 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. Make sure you have more than 1 cup of cream on hand because you might need to add more later on. Then optionally add 2 ounces of Velveeta. I recommend adding Velveeta because it will ensure the sauce stays creamy. You won't taste it because of all the other cheeses. Once the Velveeta melts, add your cubed and grated cheeses and let them melt. Do not let the mixture come to a simmer. Nothing here has to cook. We are just heating it through and melting the cheese. I ended up adding an additional 3 tablespoons of cream because my sauce was getting too thick. Remember, after the mac and cheese cools, the sauce will thicken up considerably, so err on the side of a little runny. Once the cheese is mostly melted, pour it over the macaroni and stir to combine. Any small pieces of cheese that have not melted will eventually melt because of the residual heat. Have your oven set to the broiler setting. Grate your reserved cheddar cheese evenly over the mac and cheese, then broil for a few minutes until golden. Keep an eye on it while it broils because it can go from golden to burnt in a few seconds. Garnish with green onions, parsley or chives, and dig in.